Well, in a previous video that I had made, I'd shown you how to cast these plaster shapes, and I'd shown you even how to make these candle pins. But today I'd like to show you how to paint the plaster in an easy manner where if you are doing something for a function, that it's quick and easy to mass produce. So I have on my little palette here, I have some yellow and some orange acrylic paint, and I'm just taking my little spritz bottle and I'm going to spritz down some of the yellow. I want to get that a little bit liquid, and I'm going to start to mix this together nicely. Now, my reason for this is that the plaster is extremely absorbent. So if you are using neat acrylic paint, it's just going to soak into the plaster and it will leave a line. And I would like to be able to do some shading on my shapes. So this way I'm actually going to get the base color down first. So you want to just brush this around till you get rid of most of these little lumps. Okay, and then I'm going to pick up one of my shapes. And I'm simply going to paint this on, and you can see that this is just soaking into the shell of the plaster very, very quickly indeed. But because it's liquid, I'm able to get fairly nice, even brush strokes onto this. If it's neat acrylic, you'll find that sometimes you do get stripes. Neat acrylic I would use in a situation where you're painting something that's got very specific detail. And the molds that come to mind for that are things like Christmas molds, where you maybe have a Santa face and you need to paint a white beard, and then you need to paint a red cap, etc., etc. So for this, I can brush this on nice and loosely and get this covered without having too many stripes. Always a good idea just to paint the back as well, because sometimes if you are making things like candle pins or you are doing something like a fridge magnet, if somebody picks them up, you don't want to see just a raw edge, and it doesn't use a lot of paint. So I'm just going to set that aside on my palette for now. And now I'm going to take my little spritz bottle and I'm just going to spritz this orange and get this a little bit more moist. And I'm mixing just what yellow I have left on my brush into that color. And I'm going to just simply take this, and just where the ridged areas are, just brush some brush strokes on here. You can see I'm not covering the whole surface with orange, and I'm allowing it just to do its thing. If it looks a little bit pale, then add a little bit more of the thicker paint into the surface and you will get a deeper color. But it does soak in, as you can see, very, very quickly into the base color. So this is one way of being able to shade it rather nicely and have a bit more control. Right. You can also think a little bit about where shadow lines might be. And if you would like to, you could just mix the two colors together. So for instance, if I feel that this is a bit dark over this section here where the orange is, I could mix a bit more yellow, and you can see that it immediately pushes back the deep, intense color of that orange, makes it a little bit more subdued. Okay, so this is one way that you can play around with this. Being very absorbent as this plaster shape is, this you'll find will probably dry in about 15 to 20 minutes. And it hasn't taken me long to paint this. So for functions and stuff, a really, really easy way to fix that. Now I'm just going to rinse my brush off, and I want to show you how to do the little seahorse, because that's a little bit different. Again, I'm going to start off by diluting my base color, which is this turquoisey color, just with a little bit of water. And you won't use a lot of paint for this, so it's fairly economical to do as well. Okay, so once again, I'm going to just take my little shape, and I'm going to just simply brush this over the whole shape to begin with. Oopsie, I've just got a bit of fluff that seems to be stuck. Don't want to paint that in. Okay. Make sure that you get all the way to the edges, and because this has quite a few indentations, I want to make sure that I'm covering that completely. Again, I'm painting this on the front and the back, but I'll do the front to begin with. And it's soaking in almost as I speak. It's one of the delights of doing this if you need to do it in a hurry. The colors you'll see already are getting slightly lighter as they soak in, and that is absolutely fine. You can always go over and put on a little bit more, but look at this on the back, which is a smooth surface, much easier to see just how quickly this is all just soaking into the plaster. Okay, so once I've coated the back and I've got this nice and evenly covered, I'm going to flip this over and we're going to do a little bit of dry brushing on the front just to get some of the detail. And so for that, I've got some white acrylic, and I'm going to use this in its consistency straight out the tube. So in other words, I'm using this thickly, and I'm going to swap brushes for that. To take my white acrylic, I'm going to use a little stencil brush, and you'll see that that's got short, stubby bristles. This is ideal for being able to brush over the top. So I'm going to wiggle some of this onto my brush. I want to be able to see the bristles individually. That will mean that I don't have too much paint on my brush itself. If you're in any doubt, just grab a little piece of paper. But that's essentially what you're looking for, is being able to see those bristles individually like that. And then I'm going to brush over this, and all I want you to do is just to catch the ridges on the top, and that will give me my little highlights. And this is very, very easy to do, but you need to have so little paint on here, it's frightening. So just be very careful about that. I'm not going to push down into the little ridges. I want it just to do its magic. If the paint looks as though it's starting to dry off, I'm going to just let it run and then pick up some more very, very thin paint and brush over. And you'll see already how that is just bringing the design to life just by having those few little highlights just on these ridged areas. So I've really only used two colors here. I've just used this turquoisey color, and I've used a white, and I've just played with the contrasts and got a very nice little design with no trouble at all. If I wanted to go back to the first design that I did, which is this yellow shell, I could do a similar thing with this. This paint is still a little bit wet, but let's give it a go. I could just brush along the sides, and you'll see that I'm just catching the ridges here. And I'll do the same on this side. And you can soften this if you want to by just brushing it sideways a little bit. But this just adds another dimension to the layers of the paint which you have already put on there. So just use a combination of the wash for the base coat, do your little bit of shading, and then dry brush. And I'm very happy with that. So there you've got two very, very easy little shapes done in no time at all. And the last thing that would remain to be done is that when this is completely dry, if it's going to be something like a magnet, I would strongly suggest that you put a varnish on. And we've got lovely water-based varnishes, or you could use a spray, but that would just seal the paint in and make sure that it doesn't get damaged. So thank you for joining with me today, and I will leave the link in the description box for the way that you can actually cast these plaster shapes, and I'll leave the link for the candle pins so that you can see how you can use this as a decorative item for a function. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe. I'd love to have you part of my community. Bye for now.